I'm gonna need to see some identification.
I'm sorry, what's this regarding? I'm in my own yard.
Sir, turn around. You're being detained for obstruction.
Obstruction of what? I haven't obstructed anything.
Put your hands down! Stop resisting!
Officer, I am not resisting.
Judge Richard Ashford had presided over more than 3,000 cases during his 26 years on the bench in Montgomery County, Maryland. He had sentenced violent offenders, ruled on constitutional matters, and earned a reputation as a principled jurist who never wavered in his commitment to the law. Now, at 63 years old, he had been enjoying retirement for just 8 months, spending his mornings tending to the rose garden his late wife had planted. On the morning of March 17, 2024, a Sunday, Ashford followed his usual routine. By 8 o'clock, he was in his front yard wearing faded jeans and a Georgetown Law sweatshirt, carefully trimming back the winter damage from his azaleas. His Ring doorbell camera captured him working peacefully, neighbors waving as they passed by. What Judge Ashford didn't know was that in the next 12 minutes, his understanding of the justice system he had served faithfully would be shattered. An encounter that began with a simple question would escalate into violence, humiliation, and a lawsuit that would expose a pattern of misconduct hidden behind a badge, and it would all be captured on video. The white police cruiser appeared at the end of the cul-de-sac at exactly 8:47 in the morning. Officer Derek Holloway, a 5-year veteran of the Montgomery County Police Department, drove slowly past the Ashford residence, then reversed and pulled into the driveway. The Ring camera caught every detail: the crunch of tires on gravel, the way Ashford looked up from his gardening with mild confusion. Officer Holloway emerged from his vehicle. He was 32 years old, carried himself with rigid authority, and his hand rested near his taser as he approached. His body cam was activated, but positioned in a way that would conveniently obscure crucial moments. "Morning," Ashford called out, setting down his pruning shears and standing slowly. Holloway approached with measured steps. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification." The request hung in the air. Ashford glanced around his own front yard, processing the absurdity of the demand. "I'm sorry, what's this regarding? I'm in my own yard. I've received reports of suspicious activity in this neighborhood. I need to see your ID." Holloway's tone carried no flexibility, only command. Ashford's legal mind immediately recognized the constitutional flaw. After 26 years interpreting law, he understood his rights. "Officer, I live here. I'm doing yard work on my own property. What suspicious activity are you referring to?" The question appeared to irritate Holloway. His jaw tightened visibly. "Sir, I'm not going to ask you again. Produce identification now." This is where the Ring camera footage becomes crucial, because it contradicts what Officer Holloway would later claim in his report. Ashford did not raise his voice. He did not make threatening gestures. Instead, he calmly explained the law. "Officer, under Terry v. Ohio, you need reasonable suspicion of criminal activity to demand identification. I'm standing in my own yard doing yard work. If you can articulate what crime you suspect me of committing, I'm happy to cooperate, but otherwise, I don't believe I'm required to show you identification." You might be wondering why Judge Ashford chose this moment to assert his rights, rather than simply complying. Later, he would explain it wasn't about ego. It was about principle, the same constitutional protections he had spent his career upholding from the bench. What happened next escalated with frightening speed. Holloway took 3 quick steps forward, closing the distance. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're being detained for obstruction." "Obstruction of what? I haven't obstructed anything." Ashford's voice remained level, his hands coming up in a placating gesture, palms forward, the universal signal of non-aggression. Holloway interpreted this differently. "Put your hands down. Stop resisting." The Ring camera shows clearly that Ashford was not resisting. His hands were visible, his body language defensive. But Holloway's hand moved to his taser, unholstering the yellow and black device. "Officer, I am not resisting. My name is Richard Ashford. I am a retired circuit court judge, and I'm telling you right now that you do not have legal grounds for—" The crack of the taser discharging cut through his words. 50,000 volts coursed through Judge Ashford's body. The Ring camera captured it all. The way his body seized and contorted, the way he collapsed face first into the flower bed, his hands clawing involuntarily at the dirt as every muscle contracted beyond his control. The duration, 5 full seconds. As Ashford lay immobilized in the dirt, taser barbs still embedded in his back, Officer Holloway keyed his radio. The ring camera's audio picked up the transmission clearly. "Dispatch, this is Unit 17. I've deployed taser on a combative subject at 1847 Meadowbrook Lane, requesting backup for transport." Combative. That single word would become central to everything that followed. Because the video evidence showed something entirely different. A 63-year-old retiree, guilty of nothing more than gardening and knowing his rights, lying face down in his own flower bed. What Officer Derek Holloway didn't know yet was that he hadn't just tased any retired citizen. He had tased a man who had spent 26 years mastering the very laws Holloway had just violated. A man whose ring camera had captured every single second in crystal clear, undeniable detail. Judge Ashford's body had only begun to regain control when Holloway grabbed his wrists and wrenched them behind his back. Metal handcuffs clicked into place, tightened beyond necessity. The ring camera's microphone picked up Ashford's sharp intake of breath. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and resisting arrest," Holloway stated mechanically. Ashford, still prone in the dirt, managed to speak clearly. "Officer, I need you to listen carefully. My name is Richard Ashford. I am a retired circuit court judge for Montgomery County. You had no reasonable suspicion to demand identification, no probable cause for detention, and no legal justification to deploy that taser. Everything has been captured on my ring camera." The body cam footage shows Holloway's hands pause momentarily, but instead of de-escalating, he doubled down. "I don't care if you're the president. You obstructed my investigation." Here's what the law actually says. Under the Fourth Amendment, police cannot demand identification without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Being in your own front yard does not constitute reasonable suspicion. Once an officer lacks reasonable suspicion, any detention becomes unlawful, any arrest becomes false imprisonment, and any use of force becomes assault. The backup unit arrived at 8:56. Sergeant Linda Torres stepped out and immediately assessed the scene. An elderly man, clearly a homeowner, handcuffed on the ground, gardening tools scattered about. Her body cam shows her approaching with visible concern. "Derek, what's the situation here?" Holloway stood defensively. Subject refused to comply with lawful orders, became combative, deployed taser for officer safety. "I did no such thing," Ashford interjected, his voice stronger now. "Sergeant, my name is Judge Richard Ashford, retired from the circuit court. I was doing yard work when Officer Holloway entered my property without cause, demanded identification without articulating reasonable suspicion, and when I explained his legal obligation, he tased me. My ring camera has recorded everything." The ring camera caught the moment Torres's expression changed. Her eyes moved from Ashford to Holloway to the ring doorbell, its blue light indicating active recording. Her hand went to her radio. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Torres. I'm going to need a supervisor to this location immediately." Then to Holloway, her voice lower. "Derek, tell me you had a reason to be here." "I was canvassing for the break-ins on Elmwood Street." "Elmwood Street is 4 miles from here. Different district entirely." Sergeant Torres made a crucial decision. She crouched beside Judge Ashford and spoke directly to him. "Your Honor, I'm going to remove these handcuffs. I'm going to need to document your injuries and get you medical attention, and I'm going to personally ensure this incident is fully investigated." The handcuffs came off. Judge Ashford rose slowly, dirt clinging to his sweatshirt, deep red marks where the cuffs had been over-tightened. He looked directly at Holloway. "Officer Holloway, in my 26 years on the bench, I have seen dozens of officers testify. Good officers who understand that the badge is a responsibility, not a license for abuse. You, sir, are not one of them. What you did here today was not law enforcement. It was assault. And the video evidence will prove it." Within 72 hours, the Internal Affairs Division had assembled a case file exceeding 400 pages. Detective Investigator Marcus Reynolds was assigned as lead. His first action: secure all video evidence before it could be compromised. The ring camera footage became Exhibit A, 17 minutes and 32 seconds of continuous high-definition video showing the entire encounter. Reynolds watched it 37 times during his investigation. Each viewing revealed new contradictions between the video and what Officer Holloway had claimed in his report. Holloway's written report, filed that same morning, painted a picture of a threatening encounter with an aggressive subject who appeared to reach for unknown object in waistband area, justifying the taser as necessary for safety. But the ring camera footage told a different story entirely. At timestamp 8:49:23, when Holloway claimed Ashford advanced aggressively, the video showed Ashford standing stationary, speaking calmly. At timestamp 8:51:47, when Holloway claimed Ashford reached toward his waistband, the video showed his hands raised in plain view. The video systematically dismantled every justification in the official report. The investigation expanded. Reynolds pulled every case file from Holloway's 5-year career. What emerged was disturbing. 17 formal complaints had been filed against Holloway. 17. The department had sustained only 2, both resulting in written reprimands that never impacted his employment. One complaint from 14 months prior bore striking similarities. Holloway had detained a Hispanic attorney outside his office, demanding identification without cause. When the attorney questioned the legal basis, Holloway forced him against a wall and handcuffed him, only releasing him when colleagues emerged with phones recording. No disciplinary action had been taken because without video evidence, it became he said, she said. But Judge Ashford's case had that video evidence. Crystal clear. Time-stamped. Undeniable. The community response was immediate. The Washington Post broke the story on March 21st. Retired judge tased in own yard after officer demands ID without cause. The ring camera footage went viral. Within 48 hours, 12 million views. Within a week, civil rights organizations held press conferences on the courthouse steps where Judge Ashford had once presided. The legal proceedings initiated with precision. Judge Ashford retained Margaret Chen, a civil rights attorney who had successfully litigated over 60 police misconduct cases. Her reputation was formidable. The federal lawsuit filed on April 15, 2024, was a masterwork of legal precision. False arrest, excessive force, battery, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and failure to intervene. The damages sought, $7.2 million. That specific figure was calculated meticulously. $1.5 million for pain and suffering, $1 million for medical expenses. The taser had aggravated Ashford's previous rotator cuff injury, requiring additional surgery, $700,000 for emotional distress, and $4 million in punitive damages, designed to send a message that constitutional violations would carry severe consequences. But the civil lawsuit was only one avenue. The Montgomery County State's attorney, under immense public pressure and armed with video evidence, began reviewing criminal charges. Second-degree assault, false imprisonment, official misconduct. The Internal Affairs investigation concluded on May 3rd, 47 days after the incident. Reynolds' report was damning. Officer Holloway had violated use of force policy, failed to articulate reasonable suspicion, falsified his official report, and deployed a taser without justification against a non-threatening individual. The recommendation: termination and criminal review. The police union announced it would contest termination, arguing Holloway acted in good faith. But the union's position became untenable as more details emerged. Additional body cam footage showed a pattern of aggressive behavior. Character witnesses, fellow officers willing to testify anonymously, stated that Holloway had a reputation for unnecessarily escalating situations. By late May 2024, the walls were closing in from every direction. Criminal charges pending, federal lawsuit moving forward with devastating evidence, Internal Affairs recommending termination, public opinion rendered its verdict overwhelmingly. The consequences would be severe, because this time, everything had been captured on video. This time, the victim had the knowledge and resources to seek full accountability. And this time, the system could not look away. The disciplinary hearing for Officer Derek Holloway convened on June 18, 2024, exactly 3 months after the incident. The 3-member Board of Police Commissioners would decide his fate. The hearing was closed to the public, but transcripts later revealed the full reckoning. Investigator Reynolds presented his findings methodically. The ring camera footage played on the large monitor. Commissioner Janet Williams, a former federal prosecutor, asked the critical question, "Officer Holloway, can you explain the discrepancies between what we see on this video and what you described in your official report?" Holloway's attorney, provided by the union, attempted to argue good faith error under stressful circumstances, but the video played on loop, silent and irrefutable. When asked why he described Ashford as advancing aggressively when the video showed him standing still, Holloway could only respond, "That was my perception at the time." But perceptions must have some basis in objective reality. When an officer's perceptions consistently contradict video evidence, when those perceptions always justify escalating force, when 17 previous complaints show a pattern of questioned perceptions, then those perceptions are not reliable. They are pretextual. The board voted unanimously to terminate Officer Derek Holloway's employment, effective immediately. The termination letter included rare language. Officer Holloway's actions constitute such severe violations of constitutional rights, department policy, and public trust that continued employment is untenable. But termination was only the beginning. On July 22, 2024, the state's attorney announced criminal charges: 2 counts of second-degree assault, 1 count of false imprisonment, and 1 count of misconduct in office. Holloway faced up to 10 years in prison if convicted on all counts. The federal civil rights lawsuit moved faster. Margaret Chen had assembled a case so airtight that the department's attorneys recognized the futility of court. The video was undeniable. The pattern of prior complaints established deliberate indifference. The jury pool knew Judge Ashford's reputation. On September 10, 2024, less than 6 months after the incident, Montgomery County agreed to settle for the full amount, $7.2 million. The settlement included crucial provisions beyond money: mandatory de-escalation training for all officers. Officers must articulate reasonable suspicion before demanding identification, automatic supervisor review of all use-of-force body cam footage, and critically, a civilian review board with subpoena power to investigate misconduct independently. The press conference took place on the courthouse steps where Judge Ashford had worked for 26 years. He stood at the podium in a suit, his judicial temperament evident. This settlement represents accountability, but it does not represent justice. Justice would be a system where this never happened in the first place. Justice would be where constitutional rights are not conditional on your ability to afford a good attorney. I am fortunate. I had the knowledge to understand what was happening, the resources to fight back, and the technology to prove my case. But how many people have endured similar violations without video evidence? This settlement is about forcing systemic change so that what happened to me cannot happen to anyone else. The $7.2 million was one of the largest police misconduct settlements in Montgomery County history. But perhaps more significant was what happened next. Within 3 months, 6 other Maryland counties implemented similar reforms. Ring camera footage began being cited in misconduct cases nationwide, with Ashford's case referenced as precedent. Law schools incorporated it into constitutional law curricula. Officer Holloway's criminal trial concluded in February 2025. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 3 years in prison, with all but 18 months suspended, followed by 5 years supervised probation. He was permanently barred from law enforcement in Maryland. As for Judge Richard Ashford, he continues his retirement in the same home, tending to the same garden. But the incident changed him. He now serves on the civilian review board established by the settlement, applying his judicial experience to oversight. He speaks regularly at law schools and police academies about constitutional rights, de-escalation, and accountability. This case reminds us of crucial truths. First, constitutional protections mean nothing if they cannot be enforced. The Fourth Amendment applies in your front yard. You have the right to ask police to articulate reasonable suspicion. You have the right to record police encounters. You have the right to hold officers accountable when they abuse authority. Second, video evidence has become the most powerful tool for accountability. The Ring camera was the difference between justice and impunity. If you own your home, consider installing security cameras. If you witness a police encounter, record it from a safe distance. Third, knowing your rights matters profoundly. Judge Ashford's legal knowledge enabled him to articulate exactly what was happening and how to seek accountability. Organizations like the ACLU provide free resources on your constitutional rights. Educate yourself. Knowledge is protection. Finally, systemic change requires public pressure and legal accountability working together. The $7.2 million got headlines, but the policy reforms may ultimately protect far more people. The Ring camera footage from March 17, 2024, captured 17 minutes that changed a department and reminded us that the badge does not place anyone above the law. Officer Holloway learned that lesson at the cost of his career and freedom. The department learned it at the cost of $7.2 million, but Judge Ashford ensured the lesson would not be forgotten. If you take away one thing from this story, let it be this: your rights exist whether or not the officer acknowledges them. Constitutional protections are not privileges. They are guarantees that can be enforced and defended. Judge Ashford knew that. He lived it. And because of his courage in demanding accountability, thousands of others may never have to endure what he experienced.